Then with Arsenal's attempts to sign Real Madrid superstar Vinny Jr. We can join Gary Cottrell now, who's in Dublin following Arsenal's preparations. Always lovely to see you, Gary. So let's just bring us up to speed then with this situation. Are Arsenal going to get their man, do you think?
Well, when it comes to the Real Madrid media outlets, the social media, the digital platforms, their TV station, it's Vinicius Jr everywhere. He's popping up here, there, everywhere. He was featured heavily, arriving at the training ground, his first training session back at the club since the World Cup, before everybody else, 8:30 yesterday morning, then taking part in a double training session, scoring, running, smiling, meeting Jose Mourinho and the coaching staff, and then leaving around 6 o'clock in the evening after most of the other players. And then again today featured heavily on the social media and digital platforms of Real Madrid, arriving again early and doing some gym work and sitting on a football in the middle of the Real Madrid training ground and giving an interview to the club TV with that smile still on his face, and a very smiley interview, you have to say, indeed. Here's just one of the quotes from it. "It's gone very well," he said, "meeting the new coach and the new players and training very hard. Mourinho wants me to be as I've always been, happy, cheerful, and that I play my football." Well, that is where our quote ends, but actually I'm just going to read you a bit more from that interview, because once again the message being got across by Vinicius Jr on the club platforms, because he uses the word "we" a lot in the next statement. We have to prepare physically so that during the season we have fewer injuries and we can count on everybody. So if you're Real Madrid and you're trying to make it clear that either the player is your player, is important to you, the new head coach wants him desperately and he's not for sale, or if you're Real Madrid and you want to make it clear all those things, but also if he is to go, it's going to go for a lot of money, it's going to take a lot of negotiating, then why wouldn't you use your club channels to get that message across? But my understanding from the very start, from the Real Madrid side of things, is that there's, never say zero, Vicky, but a 0.1% chance of Vinicius Jr not being at Real Madrid next season.
OK, all right. Thanks for now, Gary. We'll come back to you because you're going to follow all things Arsenal for us. So, Dharmesh, just talk us through the different ways that this could play out for Vinicius Jr then.
They look like there's about 4 options here with regard to Vinicius Jr. Number one, he signs a new contract at Real Madrid, and all of this goes away. He stays at Real Madrid. Big part of Jose Mourinho plans moving forward. Number two, he doesn't sign a new contract and he gets sold, but given what we've just heard from Gary Cottrell, a 0.01% chance of him not being at Real Madrid come the start of, by the end of the transfer window. Then he doesn't sign a new contract and he leaves for free, or is able to sign a pre-contract agreement outside Spain in January. Or probably the higher, as Real Madrid are concerned, is that he doesn't sign a new contract and they use the final year of his deal to still try and convince him to stay at Real Madrid. But given what Gary is saying there, it looks like Vinicius Jr will be there at Real Madrid beyond the end of this transfer window. I just think that there needs some sort of clarity one way or another on his contract, simply because if a player of his ability in the current market, people were talking 130, 140 million pounds, if he doesn't sign a new contract in the next couple of weeks, for example, or is not giving the indication that he is going to, Real Madrid then have got a bit of a problem, because they're kind of a transfer window, the last transfer window where they will effectively hold the cards, because they can still get a transfer fee for him. Come January, he can speak to clubs outside Spain and sign a pre-contract agreement. 6 months after that, he can go anywhere in the world that he wants for free. But from what Gary's saying at the moment, he's got great contacts at Real Madrid. Vinicius Jr staying at the club at the moment, but I still think there needs to be a bit of clarity with regards to his contract moving forward.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, the thing that everyone's talking about there, Michael, is the salary that he's going to command. So could this backfire in any way for Arsenal should they get hold of him?
I think salary is the key one, Vicky. I mean, especially if he could speak to non-Spanish clubs in January. Look, when a player of this would potentially come to us, a bit like Mesut Ozil when he left Real Madrid to join Arsenal, it elevates the football club and it will delight the supporters, but it also would elevate the wage structure. What would he command in terms of his wage? His current wage at Real Madrid would probably be higher than most at Arsenal now anyway. what would it say to the likes of Declan Rice? What would it say to the likes of Bukayo Saka? I mean, they might turn around and say, as long as he wins trophies for Arsenal, we don't particularly care. But that's probably the one very few negatives, I would say, on this, what would be an exciting deal. But hearing what obviously Darmish has said and what Gary said, would probably put it in the unlikely basket at the moment.
OK, the unlikely basket. I like that. OK, let's get back to Gary Cottrell, because Vinicius isn't the only Brazilian international that Arsenal are keen to sign. We can hear the seagulls there in Dublin around you. But what about the pursuit of this Newcastle great Bruno Guimaraes then?
Well, the very unlikely basket I would put Vinny in, but the very likely basket I think you put his fellow Brazilian Bruno in, because we know that he wants to join Arsenal. We know that talks have taken place between his representatives and Arsenal, and now talks, we understand, going on between Arsenal and Newcastle. Their first bid has been rejected, but of course that is the normal procedure, isn't it, for big players wanting to move between big clubs. So yeah, I think in terms of Bruno, Arsenal are going to get their way. In terms of Vinny, potentially not. I have no independent confirmation of what I'm about to say, but the feeling in Spain is that those talks between Vinicius Jr.'s representatives and Real Madrid will take place tomorrow.
Thank you, as always, Gary. So, Bruno Guimaraes, potentially, we're talking about Seagulls, not going to...
Just on that, David Ornstein from The Athletic is just now reporting that Arsenal are nearing total agreement with Newcastle United to sign Bruno Guimaraes. It's something that we probably saw in the pipeline, given how this deal has been going so far this summer. There's a desire, he says, among all parties to bring a situation to a close, and the deal now on course for completion. We will, of course, follow that up now with both clubs and see if we can stand that up on that end. But I think we've always thought that the direction of travel, once Arsenal formally went to Newcastle, as we reported this week, with a bid that got rejected, there was always going to be the expectation that Arsenal would go back in again and to try and get this deal done, because there's a player that desperately wants to go to Arsenal if, and this is a big if, Arsenal and Newcastle can agree a fee, because we shouldn't confuse the deal that's happening now with Alexander Isak from last summer, because Alexander Isak said, I'm not going to train, I'm not going to play. Bruno Guimaraes has turned up to La Manga at their pre-season training camp. He's doing everything that is being asked of him with regards to Newcastle United until there is agreement between the two parties. If there isn't, he'll stay put. But the direction of travel now would indicate that that direction of travel is heading from the northeast to North London.
You imagine Bruno might have spoken to the new head coach, Matthias Jaissler, of his potential plans, or maybe to say, look, thank you, wish you all the best, but I want to pursue a new challenge. Of course, no Europe for Newcastle next season. They brought a lot of young players in, but a lot of senior players going out as well. And I think Newcastle need to move on from this now, don't they?
OK. What about players leaving Arsenal then? Because obviously we're hearing about lots of incomings potentially.
We saw Gary Cottrell out there in Dublin ahead of Arsenal's pre-season game against Real Betis. One player who is not in Dublin is Christian Norgard. We reported earlier this week that Arsenal and Everton had agreed a deal for the player for around £7 million. Well, he hasn't travelled to Dublin, and we are told that he has now been given permission to travel to Merseyside to have a medical with Everton. That one now looks like Christian Norgard, when and not if, will become an Everton player, all being well with his medical.
OK. It's been a busy summer of transfers already for Chelsea. Xabi Alonso doesn't think his side have finished their business quite yet, though. The Chelsea boss gave us this update from the club's pre-season tour of Hong Kong.
Each season it's a moment to invest, to buy, to get players, to sell players, but to do things with a plan that we had in mind. So we are still 3 weeks to go in the transfer market, but we have an idea how we want to finish. Let's try to accomplish it the best possible way, and that makes sense with the finances as well. Everything needs to come together with what you expend and what you receive from the sales. So that needs to make for sure sense. And we want to have a good season. Let's see where we are in May, but for sure we want to have the feeling that we are competitive, that we can deserve to fight for important things during this year. Time will tell, but that's our goal at the moment.
Darmish, Chelsea have done a lot of business. They seem to have changed the way they do business as well, in terms of experienced players coming in this season. One centre-back on his way out as well. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's Trevor Chalobah. Sky Italy are reporting that he's expected in Italy tomorrow ahead of a medical with Como, Cesc Fabregas's Como. Of course, that's after a deal between the two clubs was agreed at over £30 million, including add-ons. We just heard from Xabi Alonso there. Last week, when he was asked the question, how many centre-backs do you want at the club? He said 4 or 5. There are currently, including Trevor Chalobah, 10 centre-backs at Chelsea. So that would make it 9, because this one looks like it's going to happen. Expect another 3 or 4 centre-backs to leave Chelsea. You know, the likes of Axel Disasi and Badiashile, they're still on the books at Chelsea. We would kind of expect movement from 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those players still, because he wants to really streamline that squad. Doesn't want to be in a position where previous managers have had to have one training pitch for all the players that he can select from, and then another training pitch with another 20-odd players who aren't in the plans. You just can't function like that. It's not sustainable, financially at least, but just for the atmosphere in the group as well. He wants players who he wants there and who want to be at Chelsea.
Yeah, makes sense. What about the forward line then? Because apparently Tottenham are interested in Nicholas Jackson. What can you tell us about Nicholas Jackson?
My understanding is that's not the case.
Okay.
I know he's linked. We've been linked with Tottenham Hotspur before. There was some word on it earlier on social media doing the rounds, but my understanding that's not true. Look, Tottenham and Chelsea transfers, it's very rare. I come back top of my head, I think the last one was Gus Poyet in 2002. But Tottenham are looking at forwards, a left-sided and potentially a striker as well. And with no Europe for Chelsea, he might be one that they'd consider selling for the right price. Chelsea they've done some good business, but they've got a very big squad at the moment.
Yeah.
No Europe is such a massive factor when you try and complete your squads after this deadline. European football is basically a second season with the amount of games now in the new European format. But you just wonder, like Damish was talking about, with too many centre-halves for Chelsea, might have won too many forwards as well. But he won't be going to Tottenham Hotspur as it stands.
OK, if he's not going to Tottenham, what are the options for him, Dams?
Well, earlier on this transfer window, and in transfer windows past, actually, there's always been an interest from Aston Villa for Nicholas Jackson. And it's easy to see why. Unai Emery, the head coach, manager at Aston Villa, used to manage Nicholas Jackson when he broke through at Villarreal. In fact, he avoided buying other more experienced strikers because he believed in Nicholas Jackson that much to give him his opportunity. Now, there is an issue and a problem regarding any kind of purchase for Aston Villa and Nicholas Jackson. That's all to do with UEFA's 45-day rule. Settle down. Let me try and explain what this all means. Now, UEFA want to kind of avoid swap deals because it impacts on the profit and sustainability in their financial books for clubs. So, for example, if a club buys from another club, they cannot sell to that same club within 45 days because it is deemed as a swap deal. If that deal happens, then the profit will not be realised in that immediate year. To break this down more easily, I know this is not making that much sense at the moment, but do bear with me. For example, when a club buys a player, the selling club can put the full amount of that transfer fee into that year's books. When you buy a player, for example, say for £30 million, you don't need to say you've spent £30 million in the first year. It's amortised over the length of a contract. So people can see that buying and selling, you can kind of make a profit for a particular year. Now, UEFA have noticed that maybe clubs are trying to circumvent that rule by trying to buy and sell between the same club, because when you buy, you can split the cost over a certain amount of years, whereas when you sell, it goes in as a profit for that full year. So if we look at the Chelsea-Aston Villa example, Aston Villa sold Morgan Rogers to Chelsea, £117 million. They made a huge profit, 80-odd million pounds when you take into account the amount that was owed to Middlesbrough. So they can put that profit straight into this year's books. However, if they wanted to go and buy Nicholas Jackson, it will come within that 45-day period. So UEFA will say, well, that might be deemed as a swap deal. So the profit that you've made from Morgan Rogers, because you're buying Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea, will have to be split among 3 years, rather than
you can only spend
immediately
a third of it.
doing it on that first year. And we all know that Aston Villa have got various financial issues to try and comply, especially with the new UEFA rules. That's why it's so important for them to get the full profit in this year. So the alternative is, I know what, Aston Villa, let's go and get a loan for Nicholas Jackson. However, you cannot get two players from the same club on loan at the same time. Aston Villa have already signed Alejandro Garnacho from Chelsea on loan. So that's where there's a bit of a sticking point. It's not impossible for them to buy Nicholas Jackson. They can, but they know that they will forego some of the profit in that first year that they made and the huge profit that they made on Morgan Rogers. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but we're actually slightly annoying them for them in that sense.
Rules are the rules, aren't they?
We're going to go and read the rule book from UEFA, so stay with us. Signing them. What are the chances of Barcola going to Liverpool?
Still a lot of work to do. There's a big price involved here, but Liverpool are definitely interested. I think the prices that were being bandied around were around £145 million. PSG, publicly at least, will say, no, Bradley Barcola is part of our plans. We want to keep him. And yet, on the flip side, they're making signings in the forward line. Mika Gertz of Ajax is on his way. Magnus Akliush from Monaco.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Monaco as well. Tottenham Hotspur, I think, were linked with very strongly this time last summer. Yep. Both those players are expected to join PSG. I just wonder, once those players arrive, if and when they arrive, what the approach will be to Bradley Barcola. Because you've got to remember, as far as Barcola is concerned, he's got 2 years left on his contract. At the moment, he's not signing a new deal. And that's primarily down to the fact that if you go back to last season, in the biggest games, the quarterfinals of the Champions League, the semi-finals of the Champions League, the final of the Champions League, Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, Desiree Doué were the front three. Barcola was coming off the bench. If there are new players coming into that squad, how far further down the pecking order is he going to go? And if PSG are then willing to do business, you would expect the price to go down. There are some sources that might even come down to £128 million, just £128 million. Whether Liverpool will still go that far is another matter, but make no mistake about it, Liverpool want to strengthen their forward line, and he is definitely up there in their top list of targets.
Yeah,
I think they might retain the title in France. I've just got a hunch this season.
Yeah, maybe. OK, let's turn our attentions to Yande Amande then, because what's happening with him? Because he's a name that everyone talks about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's been coveted by all the top European sides, but of course, all eyes for us will this year be on how Jose Mourinho gets on at Real Madrid. But there is a lot of hope. And we've been speaking to our colleagues in Germany that Real Madrid are very hopeful that they will secure the signing of Yande Amande, and then they're active talks with RB Leipzig today to try and close this deal. As I say, a number of clubs have been looking at him, but they're keen to have him and get a medical as soon as possible to get him on board for Real Madrid. He didn't travel with Leipzig to Austria initially after calling in sick. He is a bit better now, and as we say, they're hoping to get this done for around £100 million.
We haven't got a situation with Alexander Isak on our hands here, no.
That doesn't sound
just
like
sickness.
It. Our colleagues in Germany are suggesting that Real Madrid are very hopeful.
All right, OK. Let's talk Manchester United now. And what about Jadon Sancho? Where could he be playing his trade?
Well, when we say Manchester United, he's no longer a Manchester United player. His contract was up. Manchester United decided not to exercise that one-year option. So he was a free agent. He has agreements in principle with a number of clubs in Europe, in the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia. He just wants to see what all of his options are before making a final decision. You remember a few months ago on Sky Sports News, we actually reported that Borussia Dortmund were interested in re-signing Jadon Sancho. He was there, he made his name there when he moved there from Manchester City, before he got that big £73 million move to Manchester United, which clearly didn't work out. And within the time he was at United, 5-year contract, he had 3 loan spells, went back to Borussia Dortmund, had a really good time there, in fairness, but got a Champions League final, played in a Champions League final. Then he went to Chelsea on loan. Then last season at Aston Villa, all 3 clubs, I think, had an option maybe to make those deals permanent, but decided against making the deal for Jadon Sancho permanent. So back he came to Manchester United. Clearly, that's the end of his contract. The wages are off the books. It will be interesting to see where he ends up. I'm told that lines of communication with Borussia Dortmund remain open, even though there hasn't been much movement on that front of late.
Mark, you got some breaking news, haven't you?
Yeah, and it comes from the WSL. Barcelona have signed Carolyn from Manchester City, and a fee's believed to be around 1.25 million, which is a record WSL sale. And Carolyn signed a 4-year contract with the European champions, officially presented as a Barcelona player tomorrow. So that's Carolyn joining Barcelona from Manchester City for 1.25 million. More on that at 7.
At 7. OK, brilliant from you too, I think. Well done. OK, stay with us. We've got plenty more coming your way. We're going to have another transfer show. Remember, that's at 7 o'clock tonight, so stay with us for that, with these two as well. Next, though, we've got a brand new interview with Phil Foden. And, of course, we'll have the latest on